The agenda is the minutes from the previous July 16th, 26th meeting. There's no meeting on the 28th.
You talking in my
The second agenda item is the community and economic development update. Mr. Little, I think all of these items will be discussed.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we'll just go down the list.
All right.
Oh, please don't just go down the list,
No, it's gonna go down the list.
one item at a time, down the list, right?
That's what I mean.
Okay, all right.
Okay. The first item I have on the agenda is the status of Project T. I believe that most are aware, and if not, status of Project T is that they have been given a conditional approval by MISTA that has a number of items that have to be completed within a certain time frame. We have been meeting weekly, including 2 hours ago, to work our way through those issues, and also to end it by preparing a letter that's going to the MISTA director and the assigned staff person that's over Missing Middle Housing, which is the source of funding that that project is coming from. Essentially, those factors that needed to be addressed was one, approval of the zoning change to a planned unit development. We have gone through receiving first an interim site plan that was reviewed by our city staff, and information passed on to the planning commission. And as of July 25th, we received the updated plan from Renovari and Project T, which is coming up tomorrow. The PUD public hearing is scheduled for tomorrow, I believe, 1 o'clock. And anyone's invited that would care to attend. Essentially, the change to a PUD, which you may recall that you made an amendment to the zoning ordinance about 6-8 months ago that would allow property that's classified as that is to be able to be changed to apply for a planned unit development, which gives the developer a lot more flexibility in terms of how to put a mixture of retail and commercial and so forth together. So that public hearing will take place tomorrow. There's a schedule that will be followed. They also have now received the site plan with elevations and so forth, which they will be reviewing and anticipate taking action on within the next few weeks in order to be able to complete that. With that, there are some other conditions that Renovari and Habitat have to meet that they're working on. One of them includes site control, and will be, our attorney has been reviewing a change on the layout of the option that we had approved that will meet the requirements that MISTA has set forth. So overall, the project is moving fairly well. It will probably be finalized in terms of the things that MISTA is requiring with an action by the city commission sometime in November, after all of the other stuff is done.
I have a question. At the
Yes.
last, I think it was the meeting that they did the presentation in.
Yes.
there were some questions, so they'll be answering the questions that arose from that meeting and that other commissioners had around the project. Those will be answered as well during the public hearing or prior to the public hearing tomorrow.
I'm fairly certain that there will be, but I think we probably do need to get a list of those and make sure that they are covered. Yeah, but some of them I'm sure have already been addressed in terms of changes they've made to the layout and that kind of thing.
With the 2 bedrooms instead of the 1 bedroom that was going to be. Chair?
Any other questions?
We have Commissioner Adams.
Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. In regards to the surrounding properties, there was a resident that happens to be here this evening. He don't attend the meetings. And I encourage the residents to come in and educate themselves and ask any questions when things may affect them and their property.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he received a letter. I'm not sure if he has it or not, but there was some questions surrounding not the project overall itself, but if in fact it will raise the property taxes of those that have been and lived around that area. And if in fact it will, what would that impact look like to those property owners that are dwelling there now when this development takes place? And I just wanted to address something in regards to an event that was hosted about this project and all other projects. When it comes to this, it's just because we keep hearing the missing middle, when in fact somebody has did a poor job of the income level of the residents of Benton Harbor, because it's not true. Now, I'm gonna speak to this because somebody thinks that all of them on Social Security and don't want to work and stuff, but I can attest to the fact that I had one that just started a job yesterday through a temp service, and before he even got home good from his second day of work, a call telling him that he didn't need to return. Why? When he was actually promised after a drug test that it was from temp to hire. False hope will break any man's heart or woman. And that's what a lot that has happened in our community, and we just cannot discard that. Don't just think that, but let's stick to the fact that the missing middle is real. The impoverished poor is also real. And just because this is a project of HUD or anybody else doesn't mean that it should not be quality work that we're given with quality material. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would say in response to that, we certainly agree. In fact, that was the thing that played a part in the length of time it took before this project materialized, was that we basically said to them that this particular location is probably one of the most visible, highly visible in the entire city outside of downtown. And as a consequence, we wanted to make sure that whatever we accept to go on that location is not only high quality, but that it also has a very acceptable appearance, and that it would be looked upon as an asset to the city. In response to the question that you asked, and I recall them answering that before, and I'll answer it again, as to impact on existing surrounding properties as far as any increases in property tax. No, there should not be any increase in property tax. And in fact, the developers cited the Headley Amendment, which places limitation on the amount of increase that can occur within a 1-year time period. And as a consequence, there shouldn't be any increases in the tax rate on surrounding properties. They did, however, mention that one of the expected impacts of having a development of this size, quality, and so forth in that location, in close proximity to the existing homes around there, it probably will raise the value of your homes. If in essence, someone were inclined to sell the home, you'd probably be able to sell it for more. If you keep it and continue, it'll be worth more.
Rightfully so. And
Thank
just-
you, Honorable, thank you. Anytime you have jackhammers and wood and foundations going up anywhere, the property value is raising. Biggest problem that we've had in Benton Harbor was a keyword, and you can look it up when you get home or Google it. It's called comparables. We have nothing to compare to. It's hard to find out what your property is valued at. Once you start having comparables, then it drives the market, which the market is doing real good right now to see houses across the street, 600 blocks. So most of our city, at an average of about $50,000 to $60,000, is high for what we've usually paid for them in the past. So when you look at it, just know that your property value your property value is going to go up, but the taxable value, they can't charge no more. Is Article 6, is it? I know it's the Headley Act, but is it 6?
Yeah, I forget exactly what, but.
It's the Headley, but it's a 6, I think it is a 6, or which says that you get the rate of inflation, but it won't raise. Now landlords are different, and that's where the homestead, if you homestead it, that's those words. If you homestead it, then you don't get that rate of inflation like most will. But I mean, if you own your house, it's a good thing to have something being built by your house. Commissioner Adams.
Thank you. Just quickly, I just want to leave the legislative chair with this thought. And I've mentioned it in a meeting, in our last meeting, that with that being said, and the property value should go up, rightfully so. Because once again, we all know the redlining was real, still is, has not been fixed, but we can do something. And I'm asking to really take a serious look at what we can do for the descendants of slaves, taxes be frozen, period.
Amen.
I'm with that too. Let's go ahead and do it. Let's get everybody across the state on that one. Federal government too. I'm with that.
Property tax.
I will say that this is something that we've been working on for many years. Get this done. And those who say we haven't done nothing, I would say to them, from the choir stand to the marching band, we have played an integral part in getting a lot of this stuff done. This came from me and Commissioner Adams. In fact, we want to get them and bring them back to Benton Harbor because they left Benton Harbor. Just make that a point of, I know we got attendance on them, saying it on the minutes, not attendance, but make sure we write that down, clerk, that we did bring them back to Benton Harbor because they left Benton Harbor because the property tax was so high and people were losing their houses, even with the Jimmy Carter homes. So it was a partnership to bring them back because they had went to Bridgman. Said they would never build in Benton Harbor again because people were losing their houses. And it was a foreclosure rate of the Jimmy Carter houses. So every time we went, and this is a point of information that people need to grasp. Because anytime you got development going on, these things happen. We told them to stop paying their water bills and they put it on their tax roll. They had to pay on their escrow the amount of money that had to pay back. Even if we give it money back, the bank don't look at it as that. The bank starts charging them more. When we tell people we're cutting their grass and put it on their taxes, then, or rubbish and put on their taxes, You have residents who can barely afford to even stay here and pay the taxes. When you start adding to the taxes, so that's why it behooves us to make sure that when we say we're cutting grass, getting rubbish, landlord, tenant, whatever you put on their tax roll, I'm talking about people who live there. It's legitimate because people are losing their houses. And Jimmy Carter, that hope, they didn't want to come back to Benton Harbor. So we got them back here. So I think it's commendable that we were talking about this right now. So thank you, Mr. Director Little, those who have helped. You can get them back to the table. Because one thing we've been complaining about is housing. You know, you can put them out of Harbor Towers, but where you gonna put them? You put them out of Barron Homes and all these other homes where people go. And there's other people who don't wanna live in these places, but have money to find a house, but can't find a new house or anything else to live in. So this is a step forward. Thank you again, Director Little. Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Thank you all your commissioners who have supported it. And Commissioner Henderson, your hard work and your endeavors in getting this project to where it is. We can't say we didn't try.
And I want to thank you all for your support and perseverance and supporting the direction that we're trying to go, because we are cognizant of the need at every price point, and we're going to be trying to pursue housing for every price point. We recognize there's a great many people in the city right now that are housed but need better quality housing. And we want to try and address that need, but at the same time, we also recognize that we as a city, if we're going to move forward, we're going to have to increase this population. And we hope that in doing so, we'll increase it by providing housing that as people find jobs here, they'll be able to stay in the city as opposed to having to move out into the townships and elsewhere. We also recognize that as a lot of the Chicago big money has put pressure on the workforce housing in the surrounding communities to where they bought it, put money in it, upgraded it. The people that used to live in it can't afford it, and they are looking for a place to live. And we should be one of those places that some of these people can move to. By doing so, we not only increase our population and protect our status as a city that's designated to receive direct funding from HUD and the federal government, but it will also help to increase our tax base. And as you increase the tax base, you can lighten the load on the people that have been carrying all the load previously. Because if 10 people are the source of a certain amount of money that previously 5 people carried, then it lightens the burden.
Thank you. I want to open the floor. Commissioner Adams stated we had some residents that were concerned about this project. If they wanted to have something to say about it, feel free to come forward. We can answer their questions.
Oh, okay.
I have a question.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to address something that.
Can you please come to the microphone, please? I
No
understand.
problem.
Just so we can hear you for the record.
Yes, and everybody will know that it's Commissioner Adams and not Henry, since we have a knack of sound alike from when we're out of view. Mr. Little just touched base on something, and I hate to come with complaints, but when my residents complain to me about something as their leader, I'm supposed to do exactly what I'm doing right now. I've had some calls from some people that have put in applications, and they pay a fee for these applications for the new whole flats to find that, and they know that their credit is in good standing and they have a perfect record and nothing, that would stop them from getting a place. For some reason, I can't get them to come down here, but they want this known. And I don't doubt that it's not happening. I can't say that it is or isn't. But if we are partners, and we're supposed to be a partner, then I think that we need to start playing a larger part in the portion in which things are being done and handled, so that we are holding ourselves accountable, them accountable, and that we're being transparent about things. Because if they are eligible for an apartment, they should not be being denied, and then no refund is non-refundable. We need to fix that. We need to do our part. If we're trying to, and we're building on the tax base. And he just echoed what I stated earlier. Those that have brought the city thus far, put a freeze on them taxes. Because we doing our part, creating businesses, creating jobs, building on tax base. And we got others sitting in the background waiting to swoop it up. And it ain't right.
Sweep it all
I like
up.
that. When you part with the partners, I like that. That was all right. We use that one. It's good. Can you make note of that? That we need to have a conversation. Because people are putting money down to get the application, you already know that they can't get in, they know you're keeping their money. If that is happening, that's borderline illegal. I mean, where's that money going? I can't take money from you now, I have nothing available. All right, where we on B or C? Status corner of Wall Street.
Yes. To give you an update on the corner of Wall Street project, that project too has received an approval to, let me say, conditional approval on certain things being done within a time frame, and they'll be able to move forward. One of the things that has come up as a concern, MISTA sent a letter to MHC Housing, which a copy was forwarded to me, asking questions about environmental concerns, about properties that bordered on the site of, and as a matter of fact, these are pictures that they sent us concerning adjacent properties that they're concerned and wanted to know if we had any information about these properties. And they're old pictures. When you go out there now, you can't look and see where that was. But in any event, we asked them for the addresses, and we are trying to pursue whatever information we can find regarding that. I contacted the Brownfield Authority to ask them if they had any record of any prior environmental history associated with any of those surrounding properties, and they did not. But the state said that they had these pictures from some years ago, that there were barrels and whatnot on some of those properties. They don't know what was in them. They even found some test wells that were put in. They don't know for sure by whom or what they were testing for, and for that reason, they were trying to first find out if there was any record. If not, they're probably going to require that testing be done to make certain that there's nothing that is contaminating the property or that would come into the property that could be harmful to people if homes are built on those. Just to review, in case anyone's not aware, this was a 44 to 55 unit permanent supported housing project, which means basically that it's for people who are handicapped in some way, need assistance. They'll have a number of different service agencies available on site to address any problems or concerns that the people have and that kind of thing. And it also plans to have a 5,000 square foot grocery store in it. But that's the status of the project at current. I'm sure the MHT is working on trying to do whatever they can do to meet those conditions and so forth. And I think in both projects, Project T and Corner Wall Street, we're probably looking at next spring for construction.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'd like to just not speak for the Brownfield Authority Board as a whole, but in remembrance of the last large grant that was received was 280 some odd $1,000, I think, to come in and do remediation work on a lot of the properties throughout Benton Harbor. And it was a company out of Saginaw that had gotten that contract. And all of these properties, there should be some paperwork, a paper trail. And the planning commission probably should have access to it as well. But Mark should know. And I probably got the paperwork somewhere, but I'm not.
I did contact him in regard to these
Okay.
with the addresses, and he said he had no record of it.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
That's not
Um,
weird.
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, just briefly on the subject just came up about the Harbor Flats people applying. And I just reached out to find out, what could have possibly been the issue. And it is either the background check didn't clear or rental history didn't clear. But when you're paying for the application, that's part of that process of clearance. And so if somebody was denied, it was for those reasons, is what I was told.
And that is a very common practice in most of the US that, because I know I was assisting one of my relatives with a place in Columbus, and we had to pay a fee every place we applied.
Because there's fees sometimes to go into those systems. Commissioner Evans, I don't know if you caught that or not. That's because you brought up a very important point about.
Speak up.
You brought up a very important point about people being denied after filling out the application. But I did reach out to see what the issue was, and the issue has been if people's backgrounds didn't clear, if their rental history did not clear, is why. And there's a fee once you put the application in. And so they said if any of those things didn't clear,
Exactly.
then the person was denied being placed in the.
But we're talking about somebody that never done nothing wrong in their life. Drink or smoke either.
They do
We just
background
need to
check.
do our part.
Yeah.
In
But
partnership.
that's what I was just saying.
But thank you.
All right, Mr. Henry.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Man, we can get close to the mic. Can you turn that mic that way?
No, I just want to ask Mr. Little, did I hear that the
There you go.
Wall Street not looking at homeless anymore? They're looking at handicap?
It may very well be homeless. I am not positive of the exact requirements, but they're whatever the requirements the state sets for those.
Well, because when they said homeless, I thought about all the homeless people that we have over at Harbor Tower and other places, homeless. And I thought, well, this is definitely something that Benton Harbor needs. So that was,
The state has its requirements for who can and cannot receive services in these permanent supportive housing developments, because they basically are paying the rent and the cost of the services and all of that. So there's no real discretion on our part regarding it.
well, I'm just saying, this is what they told us when they came, that they were looking to help the homeless and with the food and all of that services.
Yeah.
But now I'm hearing disabled people, so I'm trying to.
Let me correct that then. That's what I was saying, but that may not be the exact definition. I too recall when we first began, as a matter of fact, they were seeking to have a contract with Emergency Shelter Services to screen and refer the people that would live there. And they were looking at Riverwood and the other agencies to provide the services. I do not know if anything has changed on that.
Okay, All right, thank you.
You, with Hood right now, what they got is the, and this is a problem that we have, well, not a problem, but it's an issue that's arisen in the last, I think, 6 to 8 years. We're mentally handicapped
Yeah.
and senior citizens are being housed together, which I don't agree with that at all. I think that when you hit a certain age, after you've been working for a lot of years, you deserve to go to rest in peace.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have no wild 19, 20 years old, 21 years old who has mental. And I'm not saying they don't deserve a place to stay, but you don't want nobody chasing your grandmama down the hallway
Exactly.
who has a mental illness.
Yeah.
You know, I think Hood made a mistake when they did that, lump them all together. But that is an issue. You having it all over. I mean, St. Joe, they had that building down there, right across from courthouse. Yeah, right across the courthouse, where the seniors were living there. They thought they had it going on, and now they got them mental handicap running around there and chasing them up and down the hallway. And they have the issue seriously.
Mm.
You know, you got a guy down there running down the hall, no clothes on. Your mama waking up, and she got a good view over the lake. She walk outside and she can see Jake out there. Oh, he's from State Farm.
Look at DJs.
Stop.
Look at DJs on your way home.
I'd like to ask a question in regards to, because we've overlooked it for too long, and I think it's because it may be privately owned, but the old hotel, the old
Right here.
House of Davis Hotel, because the homeless seem to be moving downtown anyway, with or without our approval, and not just, it's been happening in other cities for a long time, but it's happening here now. And it seems like the more and more we grow and the busier we get with businesses and stuff, it seems like it's happening more and they're moving into the park. But to separate, and it needs to be legally, disabled from a retiree or just, the elderly. Can we find out what's going on with that hotel? Can we take eminent domain, get some of this funding that's coming down the pipeline, and do whatever we can to assist other people that are moving into our community? They's living in hotels out there, walking up into Ben Harbor.
I wouldn't want to take eminent domain or whatever. We did the same thing with Mercy Center. Ended up spending millions of dollars tearing that thing down and never get that money back. That money taken from schools and everywhere else. I do agree that something should be done with that. But
Just saying.
I would, well, they got coyotes now, so they get caught wrong.
There could be any of us getting in and out of that car.
Get caught wrong. You
All right.
get caught wrong. It's gonna be,
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Chair? Did you see BJ's on your way here today?
I did.
Or on your way home?
I did.
Thanks. That's all, that was my question.
Yeah, it's
And
it's of a serious nature though. Seriously, when we talk about homeless,
I cleaned up that area a block down and come back and they were out there painting away and doing whatever they wanted to do. And that's what I don't like about Ben Harbor. These people from somewhere else, Gary, this is something that I'm gonna leave to the commissioners to address.
I'm gonna tell you
I'll
this.
leave it to the commissioners to address.
I'll tell you this, 475,000 immigrants have been legalized to come work here.
Well, we got them.
And I tell you one thing, and I'm not being facetious or funny,
Okay.
but every day I see now in Ben Harbor, there's an uptick in people are coming from all over the world
Well, you got it.
in Ben Harbor, and some of them are staying about 20 to 30 in the house.
They can live together.
And
What they do.
and for long, and I'm gonna say this: some of the houses that they got, they're beautifying them.
Mm.
Then they buying the house next door, and fixing that one up too.
Say that again.
I said, they're beautifying the house that they live in, and they're
Who?
buying the one next door
You
and
saying
fixing
they-
that one up.
you saying
Who you?
they.
People from out of this country.
Oh,
And I was trying to talk to them one day, and they said they don't know what I'm talking about. They said, me don't speak. And I said, me don't
they
speak
real
either.
friendly to me.
But then he put a phone up to my mouth and asked me what I was talking about. And he said, my mama owned that house across the street, my brother owned this house, and I own this house. And they have this issue, and it's right there on Broadway.
Yeah, and their neighborhood, them ain't the ones I'm talking about.
No, he said Broadway.
I give them the same
Look
paperwork
at
I
the
give
pictures on the
everybody else.
wall, and tell me what's going on.
Okay, I'll look at it. All right, let's go to, status of update of Ox Creek.
Okay. Ox Creek, as you know, for some time, we've had a $3 million grant from the federal government that's coming through HUD. In addition, we've had $1 million grant from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Between the city, SWMPAC and Eagle DNR and so forth, there's probably $6 or more million right now committed to that project. We are ready to go with the exception that every one of these projects, just as I mentioned about the environmental concerns that have come up now regarding corner Wall Street, there's some also related to Project T. Every federal project has requirements for environmental reviews. The one thing that's happened a little different with Ox Creek, because it's such a big project and a complex project, we're looking at already probably 12 sources of funding. HUD is saying to us that the environmental review that they require on Ox Creek has to encompass everything, all of the different grants, regardless of what agency they came from, and everything else that is in immediate proximity to Ox Creek, such as Hall Park. So in essence, at this stage, we've gotten clearance from them to begin using soft cost that allows us to get on with the design work, which had to be done first anyway. Some engineering work and that kind of thing. But while that's going on, we've got to finish getting through this process with them on the environmental review. They're taking stands that are incompatible with what we want to do. For instance, we want to put the boardwalk and bike path on top of where a train track ran before. One of the things that has occurred here happens in a lot of the minority cities, older cities, is that periodically the federal government, FEMA, takes aerial maps of these cities and looks at places where water has flowed out and so forth. And then after seeing it and seeing that this occurs more than once, they start a process to declare it a floodplain. And as a matter of fact, I recall right after I came on board that process was going on right then. And of course, it has happened on others. Typically in minority communities like Benton Harbor, East St. Louis, Gary, these places, people are busy with their lives. They don't know anything about what's going on with the FEMA maps and so forth, because you got to envision how that might impact you to have a concern about it. So to make a long story short, as you've seen the pictures on Ox Creek, flooding has been taking place for years. That flooded into the parking lot area and part of the baseball diamond down there, over where the railroad tracks used to run and whatnot. Well, it's now been declared to be a floodway. HUD is trying to say you can't build anything in floodway. And we're saying, oh no, we're not gonna accept that, because part of what you're talking about as a floodway was the city's park.
Right.
And in fact, there was even a platted street down there at one point, as well as the railroad through there. And we have had the good fortune to have the Army Corps of Engineers come in and start assisting us. And they are saying to us that we statutorily by Congress get to make the determinations on how to adjust these things and so forth. And that's going to require a lot of work between, in fact, they're asking us to show them what it is that we plan to put along there. And they can then try to model what needs to be done in order to protect that. And so what we're going through, and in fact, what you're hearing now is a lot of stuff you never hear about that requires hours and hours and weeks and months of work on my part that you just typically don't see. But we're trying to get this all together, get all the parties together, try to get some agreement and understanding that if that bid was strong enough to let trains run across it for years, it certainly ought to be able to support a boardwalk and a bike path. And that other than that, we're not disturbing the floodway or doing anything like that. But the same issue is going to come up between Britain and Empire, because there that creek has been neglected for so long that the water has washed away even the appearance of a creek. It looks like just a big flat area, and when the water comes through there, when you get a heavy rain or whatever, it just floods all over the whole thing. Well, that area that they're looking at there as a floodway is where I would like to see us build houses and commercial space on both sides of Valley Drive. So we got a little battle ahead of us that's going to go on over the next few months to try to get this resolved. But that's what's happening with Ox Creek. We hope to make enough progress to be in a position come spring to really get going on this, because we're all mindful of the fact that a lot of this money is coming through ARPA, coronavirus, and this infrastructure bill. And as I've said over and over again, the requirements for spending that money is that it has to be obligated by September 30, I believe it is, of 24, and it has to all be spent by September 30 of 26, or the money goes away. So that's the story on Ox Creek. That's happening.
Great job, thank you. BED or broadband, BEAD or broadband, BEAD or broadband.
BEADS is the acronym for the broadband money that Congress is putting out. I believe something like $41.6 billion, of which I forget how many millions came to Michigan. We are trying to go after and hopefully succeed in getting the some of the BEADS money, because a municipality is eligible to receive money through BEADS, provided it's addressing areas that are not already covered by high-speed internet. Now, you all know that there's very little places in Benton Harbor that is, quote, covered by high-speed internet. I know for a fact, going all the way back to 1987, when Evergreen Fiber approached us about providing broadband to the entire city if we gave them the right to use our right-of-way and so forth through the streets and stuff, that there's all kind of dark fiber underneath the city, because fiber going everywhere in this area runs to that building down the street there that AT&T has. But nevertheless, When I came on board, one of the first things that I recall is Commissioner Juanita Henry asking me to get in touch with Comcast to find out what their plans were for broadband in Benton Harbor. I went to calling Comcast and wound up with the name of Greg Kamolka, who was the engineer down at South Bend. And he basically said he didn't know, but he would be getting in touch with his people and getting back to us. Year passed, it didn't happen. Contacted him again, basically same response. And the last time I attempted to, which is like, I guess 8-10 months ago, found out he had retired. Now, back at that time when we were making that contact, I searched to find broad maps of fiber in the city and so forth. And essentially, it was showing no coverage in the city. Since all of this has taken place and now there is money, we look up and so they're claiming 80% or better of the city is covered with high-speed internet and broadband. And essentially, I know that that is not true. But essentially what they're trying to do is claim the city, because if that holds up, that means there's only about 10 to 20% of the city that would qualify for BEAD's money, and probably not enough to justify actually setting up a separate system. So the first thing that's going to occur, I attended a meeting this past week with the MeHi people of state of Michigan that's over high-speed internet, and sat in on a session yesterday that was going on out of Washington about the same subject. The first step they're going to have is what they call a challenge step, where we will have to follow their guidelines to verify the existence or absence of high-speed internet. And they'll have regulations and rules about how you can do it. And if it's alleged that somebody says, yes, I've got it, then we are allowed to do a speed test to determine, are they providing the speeds that qualify and that type of thing. But that's going to be our first hurdle. And as you know, we've been working with a firm that are trying to assist. We're trying to do this. We're trying to figure our way through this as the stuff unfolds, because some parts of it is going to cost money, and we've said to them we don't have money to pay up front to do this stuff. So some of it we may have to find ways to do ourselves or whatever. But once this is finalized and released, we're going to have to move rather rapidly to try to do what we can to try and get it. And we're prepared to try and do that. We think it's worth our while to do so.
And Mr. Little,
Yes, sir.
do me a favor, man. We'll have to speak a little bit louder, because you sound like smooth jazz right now. Everybody going to sleep.
Well, I'm done with
Not
that.
everybody, I don't
Okay, I'm done with that. Unless there are questions.
Look around the room.
Maybe that's the plan.
Everybody look like they slow dancing. You speak a little bit louder.
All right.
I thought it would just be, man. I need to drink water too.
Well,
Yeah.
closing remark I would make on that is,
Let me say this with the broadband. I'm not gonna, I can't go into the other realm of it, but there's other companies that have put broadband throughout the city. Man, for the last 5 or 6 years, you've been having different broadband. If you look at the minutes on fiber,
Mhm.
there was a company that came through here that was supposed to be just going to the schools, connecting colleges and all that other kind of stuff. That was probably about 9 years ago. And that's when AT&T and all these other came out and said, well, no, don't do it. And it make your poles look crazy, but they kept running it anyway. And that line goes from, I want to say, from Kalamazoo all the way to Kalamazoo to Niles
It was real nice.
on a pole. And that was, they got a federal grant to do it. And the state of Michigan said that what they want to do, they want to connect all colleges together to make sure all colleges had fiber. But that's it. So you got fiber pretty much everywhere.
Everywhere.
On poles, not underground. If you look on the air, you can see fiber. All they gotta do is look. Let's see orange tags.
Who's holding the purse string though?
But that's not most of them are not AT&T.
Exactly.
It's another organization. The guy, I can't think of the name of him because he came here 8 or 9 years ago, and they ran that line from Kalamazoo, and then there's Connect Point from Kalamazoo somewhere else. And there's Connect Point, but they gave them billions of dollars as far as broadband money, and that was fiber money. That was maybe 8 to 10 years ago. Because I remember they was drooping the line, and it was by Harold Hampton's house. And because when you look at a pole, the bottom line you see is telephone. The next line you see is cable. Next line you see is electricity. And there's another line that you see now that is broadband. And that's the
Obama
orange.
started that.
It's in almost every element of every aspect of any community right now. You start seeing people digging, and you'll see a hub station by certain areas where there is fiber. But you got fiber. I can't think of that company's name, but I do remember. And that's another thing that we need to start also talking about, alerting people that if you cut fiber, then you don't touch it. It's more harmful than anything. If you take a piece of fiber and look at it directly into it, it'll burn the retina out of your eye. Or you can touch it, and the glass is so finite that you have to have a form of surgery to get the fiber out of you. It's broken glass, that's what fiber is. So it's light shining through broken glass, which speeds up the. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So we dealing with atoms and stuff. Man.
So when people start talking about fiber is literally light over broken
Speed of light,
glass. So
And as a matter of fact, in the last 5 to 6 months, I've seen at least 4, maybe 5 requests come through from Comcast for permission to do fiber connections in the downtown area.
At least they asked.
So it's all over. The issue is who controls it, how they use it, and whether or not people that look like you and me can get it and at an affordable rate. And as I've raised the question,
in the projects right now, you can get fiber for $5 to $10 every home.
Wow.
$5 to $10. It's a program, and I'm not selling it, but it's a program that they have for anybody who's on food stamps.
$30 a month, the feds will pay.
Yeah, you can get the fastest in the city for $10 to $20. Well, after they get them with taxes on it, it's like $30. Then you get a free phone and everything else.
But who's offering it? Comcast is claiming that they are, but they're talking about their cable that you provide television service over.
You got a bundle with them.
Oh, chair.
I would say AT&T is doing it, but I'm not representing them. But AT&T is giving that. You got so much of it in the projects right now. How the projects they got fiber going every which way. That, I mean, every one of the projects right now has fiber.
Now, that's in the township. And I know a lot of it is going in the township. In fact, I went home about 3 months ago and AT&T was running it right through my front yard. But that's not here in the city. And, you know, because I know right now, the township was part of the Robin project that the county did. And MEC is doing fiber all through the township.
I know by Commissioner Henderson House, you can get 10 gigs,
Mhm.
and that's not, I mean, that's not, you have, what is it, not 10, it's not 10, is it 10? It's, instead of having, it's the fastest you can get, it's like
5 gigabytes.
No, it's considered to be like 1,000 meg,
Mm.
which is like, what is it? It's 4 or 5, what is it? What's the next? Jesus Christ, help me.
That's 5G.
It's faster than 5G.
Yeah, it's up there, it's 7.
Yeah, you got fiber running on all our backyards over there where we live at.
But that's my question, Honorable Chair. And I mentioned this years ago, and I think it started with This
No,
ain't-
100 meg, 100 meg.
this over here losing the 5 corner is what triggered it. People come into our community, and even some that we're doing business with in our everyday lives, just disrespecting this authority, period, as a city, to not. I mean, who is our? We're the gatekeepers, but there's a gatekeeper. I mean, who's responsible? Who do we hold accountable for allowing these people to just come in our community and just do what they want to do? We should know what's going on because they should be approaching that office right there.
Per the charter, they're supposed to be paying easement. They pay
And then we need to do our due diligence to make sure that they are. Everybody else is having to pay their.
easement. Then they also should pay for every cut. Isn't there something like that? Like a little city manager where I know they pay for the easement, and then there's also something for the federal government that they were paying. I know Comcast was trying to trade us a channel instead of paying us for every person that. I know Greene County they had it in there. I don't know what happened with Comcast.
How do we hold on to access and control this thing right here, this monster right here that we are allowing in all of our homes? How does this body take control of what's rightfully ours in our community with the dollars that's coming down from the federal government to us to rule and control our own as it relates to this broadband?
Well, they tried that back when Etta Harbor was here. Oh, they did. They bought the box and they bought all that stuff to try to build our
We're in
own
a new
phone.
day and era,
And they spent
more
four-
technology,
Yeah, but
brighter youth.
But it was supposed to be for that. It was go at the rule. I mean, what happened with them back then when they were trying to do a short tail and all these other entities. When I first started working for AT&T, and then again, I'm not speaking on behalf of them, I don't represent them, but everybody had a home phone.
Mhm.
Some people had 1 to 2 or 3 home phones or business line or whatever
Yeah.
they had. Then they stopped that and they went to DSL, then they went from DSL to UVerse, and now they went from UVerse to now fiber.
Yeah.
And if they could, they probably would go to satellite, but they ain't doing that. I would say the only way we can do it is make sure we keep a monitor on what's happening. And then when we put a monitor, make sure that they're paying for every easement. Everybody has to pay for access. That's where you're at.
So can records be checked now to see who has access and who is actually paying the easement or?
And to who?
Exactly.
I would lean on city management to do it, to see who has what has who.
question, Honorable Chair. Looking at some of the programs that are going out to the African American community, the underserved communities, marginalized communities, to increase greater access and also help in the educational arena. There's grant fundings that are out there. Are any of those funds available to tap into the city and a backdrop to allow or use the message that this will enhance the secondary education opportunities for the residents so that they will be able to do some of these Zoom classes, things like that, so that we will be able to tap into some of those federal funds to take this high internet access to impoverished communities?
I really didn't understand the question. Say it again, please.
There are programs that the federal government has, some grant programs to go into targeted poor communities with the mindset that if they go in there, give them internet access, that the kids could do school, that the parents could do schooling through Zoom that way, and that they're targeting those populations, which we are one. Is there federal funds that those kind of funds, are they for this area that could be tapped into that we could use, as we state that we're doing this as a city to try to enhance the educational opportunities for the residents that are impoverished, since we have this low median income, below poverty, and can we just use granting to do that? I mean, you're dealing with the other point in terms of regulations of the CCC and these type of communications, y'all already on that. But what about tapping into some funding programs?
Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do and what we're talking about with BEADS.
Excuse me, but those programs will provide free access to the residents, not a charge.
No, there's none that I know of that provides free access, but what we are trying to do is get a system that we can have control over, sufficient that we can have some decision-making about what the price is, as well as teach our people to do the operation and maintenance jobs that are necessary to make that system run. And in that manner, we could win out all the way around. But as I was saying earlier, the money is there, the charge is there, as you mentioned, that is supposed to be a special effort for low income and minority communities, but they have a list of hurdles that you have to go through in order to be able to accomplish it. And quite frankly, because there's big money in this whole business of broadband, the big boys are not going to make it easy for us. It's just as simple as that.
I need to do a correction. So what I was talking about, you're right, there's 2 points. One was having the Wi-Fi, which is kind of separate, that would be out there. But I guess, paying for the equipment to be able to access. But in the community, there would be Wi-Fi on their pads, stuff like that. And in Ann Arbor, they do, I don't know if it's pilot or whatever, but Ann Arbor, the city of Ann Arbor, they have that spot where you can actually go and, access the city's Wi-Fi. I don't know if it's a pilot program or something like that. But it's around the coffee shops. It's over there close to First Street.
Mm-hmm.
And over there, they have those things.
And we're about to have the same thing in that regard. As you say, Wi-Fi is different than fiber optics and so forth. But just to remind you, it's been at least a year ago, I believe, that Cornerstone came and talked to you about pursuing funding to get money to put Wi-Fi in the city's parks and also in a number of the housing developments, so that people would be able to get access to Wi-Fi and internet. In fact, you'll recall at that time, a lot of people were coming down on weekends and lining up around the library in order to be able to get access to Wi-Fi. But I understand that Cornerstone has cleared all the hurdles now and are ready as soon as we sign off to start installing that Wi-Fi. And I think that's going to be a real plus for a lot of our,
Would they be
Community.
giving Cornerstone control
no,
of their Wi-Fi?
basically it'll be free.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Basically.
Let's move it forward. Appreciate that.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Childs. Everybody need to wake up, just raise your hand and just wave one more time.
Sorry to have all of this at one time.
We already discussed 06 and we changed.
Actually, we didn't. Just briefly, what's happening with Hope 6 is that it's undergoing a change. The major investor in Hope 6, and that's just the 77 housing units that were under that. Their tax credits have expired, so they are now in the process of giving their interest over to the Housing Commission. They own 99% of the project. The 1% that remains was split between Cornerstone as an investor and Rhonda and Sam Thomas. I understand that they may consider relinquishing their interest. They actually, even though they have like 0.40, it's just less than 1%, they actually operate the units. And there are a lot of complaints and whatnot with it to say they're not necessarily, well, in any event, Cornerstone is considering offering giving their portion, which is the other 0.40%, to the city. It is a possibility that the Thomases may relinquish theirs too and make it available to us, which would essentially give operational control to the city to try and make improvements to that and so forth, and would probably require us to try and work with some contracted firm to operate that. We don't necessarily want to get into the business of trying to go around collecting rent from people and stuff. But but that's, I just mentioned that so that you are aware that those discussions are going on, and we may very well come back in the near future and try and close that if all of it comes about as it should. We're looking for some documentation and so forth to review some of it, have attorneys take a look at it and that kind of thing.
Thank you.
My question,
Mr. Adams and Dr. Childs, please.
my question is, the Hope 6 program, is that over there, the Virginia Edwards and some of the scattered homes?
Some of these right up on the hill.
Okay, that's just the Bronson Hill. Okay, and some of them are up there as well. So, didn't CAPOL play a part in they don't have any ownership, or
Not
they
that
just help with some funding along the way or something? Anyway,
I don't know.
my question is, are we working with them in a manner to allow people to actually purchase and gain ownership of a home? Some of them, I mean, some of them have gone down, a lot of them, but some of them are still cared for. And those homeowners should be given an opportunity to purchase with the hopes that they would gain an even more responsibility of where they're living. Is that something that's in the talks? Because it should be with the housing commission as well.
Can you clarify something that, make sure it's not misunderstood, rumor, that in these housing projects from back then, the Hope Six in particular, that, when that name you mentioned, the 0.4%, Tom, that their initially was being sold to the city as, this was gonna lead to home ownership, and that the individuals were gonna be able to, purchase these properties. Was that the real design initially? Because I saw it kind of drifted away, and there was some that were still saying that that was the original focus of the program.
That's what I was told.
It was, when Hope Six first started, it was as a result of myself and Vanessa Whitfield meeting Sam Thomas up in Lansing. And we talked to him about our needs here for housing and so forth. Sam came down and spent some time working with us. And the initial design of it was that these units would be built. Whoever was renting in these units, I believe 15% of their rent payments were to be put into an escrow account and held for them. And if they remained in the home for 15 years, that money would then be used, would be converted to equity and be used toward the purchase of the home. Now, if a person did not stay in 15 years, they lost that equity, they didn't get the money back or whatever. Now, that was the initial design of it when I was here. I left before all of that got finished up. And so I don't know for sure exactly what they did afterward. I raised that concern in a discussion recently with the principal owner that is now giving theirs to the Housing Commission, and they said they were aware of that, but the way the project was handled, it wasn't, apparently it was not done.
Yeah, they came back after 15 years, so they had to pay the market value for the house instead of what that deal originally was. What people voted on was not what they got.
It was scammed.
But if it was contractual, then that would be a breach of contract.
Once again, I don't know that it was because that was finished up after I left, and I don't know what was actually done.
Look at the actual document, or how to turn it with the actual document.
Wow.
Commissioner Henry, then we're moving on.
Thank you. Did I hear you say that the Benton Harbor Housing Commission,
Who?
the Benton Harbor Housing Commission was going to take over that project at
But
Then all, you,
Well-
deja vu.
I don't want to say take over, but technically they would receive the 99% ownership part that the company that currently has it does. These big investors go into a project like that in order to take the tax credits that are part of the deal. And once the tax credits expire, they're not receiving any real benefit, so they turn it over.
Okay. My question is, that all the problems that we're having right now, we're gonna give them some more responsibility without any accountability.
On dollars.
And we need to take that project, but if we don't have leadership in the housing commission, we're gonna end up with the same thing that we're having all over the city with the issues on the housing commission.
Deja vu.
I
So,
don't think you heard what I said the first time around. Let me say it again. The 99% ownership do not control and make the operating decisions. That small 1% or less, that's the part that possibly we might get. That's who controls and operates it. That's the way the deal was put
Saying that
together.
if those two entities give it to the city, that the Benton Harbor Housing Commission will not have authority over it, the
No,
city
they
of
will
Benton
not.
Harbor will?
That's right.
And that would be a special department? Who would handle that?
Well, that's something
Come
that
out of
we'd
your
have to, that's
your
something we'd
department?
have to work on and make decisions regarding.
So are you getting the necessary documents together right
Yes.
now?
We're trying to get all the documents we need to have the attorney review them and so forth, and then we will know where we stand and what the best course of action is.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair.
And you, I think that's about all we can,
It's been lovely.
ask for that.
One more,
Which one is that?
paper.
Oh,
What I'm
sorry.
sitting here for, waiting on the paper.
Review. I thought y'all was doing that when I first walked in, I was here. Review of the cable.
Okay, I had planned to be able to put it up on the screen, but I guess I sat there too long and it can't get it come up now. So I'm gonna go ahead and, here's some copies that brought of the draft of the caper. And I'm just gonna skim through and highlight the points. This is a report that we make each year to HUD within 90 days after the close of the fiscal year, which was June 30.
We're in compliance, yes or no?
We are in compliance.
Okay, Ms.
Mhm. Now, in terms of one of the questions that, well, I'll just go down through it.
We borrow one of them? Borrow one. I'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
The report shows that we service approximately 54 low and moderate income youth through the summer employment programs in neighborhoods and city parks. Some 447 persons were assisted through various public services, which includes the food bank program, which was operated for us through Southwest Michigan Community Action Agency, and also the low mod elderly persons assisted through the Community Food and Nutrition Program was another 209 elderly persons. Affordable housing, we did rehab on 17 homes. 3 were what we call whole house rehabilitation, up to $25,000 and $30,000. The remainder were basically done under the CDBG coronavirus program, which basically dealt with replacing roofs, ventilation, and things that could be impacted by coronavirus or whatever. We had, let's see.
Are we going to use the nonprofit CDC to help with some of these endeavors with rehabilitation? Because we're going to be training a lot of the youth in the community, and if we gain access to this Sam Thomas event and stuff, some of those children live in those homes. They will gain some skills to help them fix up their own house when things break down. I mean, does that make sense to anybody else but other than me?
We'll do that.
And we are still planning on working with the CDC on those, the house on Superior and the house on Agar that we currently have.
How about Brown's house?
How's those others covered?
We're waiting for the attorney to finish the paperwork to allow us to enter into an agreement with them. Okay.
Are we giving them acquisition over the property
We're
to help us to get these properties back on the tax roll?
we're working out an agreement with them whereby they'll have possession of it to do the improvements and so forth. And then once that's done, then it turns over to them to make them available to low, moderate income people. Okay. Summary, public services in the program year 2022, which went from July 1 of 2022 until June 30 of 2023. We spent $80,584.58 in the public services category, which basically is summer youth employment, the elderly feeding program, the other feeding program. We're only allowed to spend up to 15% in the public services category. In public improvements, which included the sidewalk replacement and so forth, $458,951.69, or 64.2% of what we spent, went to that category. Affordable housing, which is our housing rehab program, $77,409.53, or 10.8% of the total expenditure. Administration, $98,485.64, which is 13.8%.
Administration, what?
Administration, my salary, the people that have had intermittently in the position of coordinator, and whatever operations we've done, that's the 98.
Have we filled that other position yet?
We are in the process of interviewing for it now.
Okay.
Total CDBG expenditures in that period was $715,431.44. Now, let me just take a moment to be sure everyone understands what that's about. You will recall that we had well in excess of over $1 million, in fact, almost $2 million. And we have the spending guide that we're supposed to spend 80% of that money by May 5th of the succeeding year. We failed to spend 80%, but that's what we spent. Our actual annual allocation is around $400,000, and as you can see, we almost doubled it.
Okay, but
But-
are they working with us? They give us an extension?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they do. And as a matter of fact, because of the coronavirus thing and all of that, there are a lot of places that felt where they couldn't spend it all in that time. But they are expecting us to do a lot better and to achieve the goal in this period now. And when they do the test this coming January 5. Okay.
Any barriers under mature that prevent us to achieve that goal?
Yes,
Any barriers, anything that
yes.
prevent us? Yeah.
Yes, and those are the operational requirements. Part of what prevented us from being able to achieve it last year is I had almost $350,000 set aside in demolition to try and demolish a lot of these vacant, fallen down places around the city and so forth. But the administrative requirements before you can do that is first, every one of those houses have to be taken pictures and documented and whatnot and sent to the state agency called SHPO, the Historical Review Agency. They have to clear them first and say they're okay to go. Secondarily, every one of them has to have an asbestos assessment done by a qualified environmental specialist. And if they've got asbestos in, they have to make arrangements to remove it by a specialist who's trained in doing that.
You think the state could do better at doing their part, since they put so much on us and expect for us to be meeting deadlines?
They tried to help us as much as they could,
No, I'm
but
just saying when it comes to us, taking care of things like that, that they need to get to on their part.
well,
SHPO and,
the-
preservation and
Yeah.
lead testing and all of that.
we work with them to the extent that they can.
Okay.
And then when that's all done, we've got to, as a matter of fact, I spent part of the day today finalizing a set of specifications, because see, one of the problems is that our city, unlike most cities that are larger and that are better, in a better situation than us, typical city, if I needed specs done for doing demolition, I'd call procurement, and there's specialists down there that sit and write up these specifications and so forth, so we can advertise them for bid and we move forward. We don't have that. I have to sit down and write them. And that's the case with most of the stuff. So in any event, those are the things that can hang us up. Now, right now, I'm anticipating in the next couple of weeks putting out for bid at least 4 or 5 houses just to get this process started. And we'll keep working on it and trying to work our way through it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Does any of this consist of any more sidewalks and tree removal, like Apple Street?
Sidewalks are in process right now, being worked on.
Like Apple Street?
I don't know for
I know
sure
it's
that
out
that
there.
street's in it,
That's
but
how they cutting down trees right now.
No, I'm just asking, because I've been on there for 10 years, the sidewalks coming in. We still have children that walk down here, and it's uprooted.
Well, I sure appreciate you tonight for your
Yeah.
diligence.
yeah, the trees, and before I leave that even, when this gets started to get done, I'm gonna need assistance from other city staff to go out there and monitor to be sure that the contractors are meeting all the spec requirements, that they're actually taking up the concrete basements and the walls, that they're backfilling it the way they're supposed to. I can't go out there and stand and watch
So
and see
that's what it's supposed to
they
be
do
done?
it.
And it definitely needs to be done.
Is that the way it's supposed to be done?
Yes, I'll need to
But
have,
it hasn't been.
There's a lot of basements still out there.
I'll need to have staff working to help monitor to make sure that that stuff gets done. And failure to be able to do any of this stuff will delay us, and that's what the question was. So we'll be trying our best to coordinate with everybody and move this to keep the stuff moving along.
Before we leave, I think if you got something else on paper.
Yes, we'll just quickly run through the remaining ones. It's not a great deal more. There's a breakdown on the racial and ethnic composition of families assisted. We show in the caper 60 that were white, 396 that were Black or African American, 5 Hispanic, total of some 459. But it just covers that kind of information, that the total grant for that program year was $411,037, as I mentioned earlier. And we actually expended $715,000 through the period and moving forward. We hope to do better than that in the year we're in now. And I think that pretty much covers it. They asked for information that break down extremely low income out of the 17 houses that we did. We indicated 5 low income, 10 moderate income, 2 for a total of 17. But that information is all in the caper. Anyone have questions?
That sounds like something you said. Mr. Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, I'd like to ask Mr. Little if, since, Project T is moving forward and it's, indicating there's gonna be a lot more homeowners than it was in the first plan. If we could, help the first-time homeowners with some of that community block grant money. Cause that's what we've done in the past. And that's giving the new homeowners a leg up by, giving them, equity in their home. State is offering them something, and the city of Benton Harbor should offer something too. So through the chair, I wanna know if we can, put that into the budget for
Put it in the budget.
this year or the following year. Can we make a amendment, or can we add it to, or whatever we can do? Through the chair. Look,
It's something that can certainly be considered when the time is right. I say it that way because the Project T, if they begin construction in the spring, probably won't be completed until probably spring of 2025. And at that time, depending upon what our situation is with money, we certainly cannot just put some aside when we're already failing to meet our goals. We've got to put it in the things that uses it now. But certainly at that time, we can look at it and see what our situation is and if that's what the commission wants to do.
Can we do something with our Paw building to get up and open?
Thank you. I have a question, before we leave, starting, next we're in request of a parcel, if we can just kind of speak to that real quick before we go. That's part of the comments. We'll leave.
If you open your email, Honorable Assistant City Manager, Economic Development, there's pictures there showing the driveway to 272 Pipestone. That is only access into the building is the driveway, which is now owned by the city, and I've been asked to purchase my driveway so I can use the driveway to get into the future boys shelter that we've been working on. So I'm asking to purchase what I consider my driveway or the driveway. And there's no other way to get into the building for that. If you look at your email, you can be able to post the pictures, and the commissioners can see. There's a picture of Commissioner Mary Alice there right in front of the driveway, and Commissioner Edward Tyson in front of the driveway. Because that's the same driveway,
1959, it was,
259.
all of that was together. It was, yeah.
Right, and so that's where I would get and to use it right off the driveway when we came and picked up the purchased fruit and vegetables. So that driveway now is owned by the city, and I'm trying to purchase it back. 272 Pipestone.
Can we look at that?
Yeah.
We'll get some information, we'll get that to the attorney, get that handled, or whatever.
We will take a look at it and try and, touch base with other commissioners.
But as a city, we represent ourselves for the city, not for this committee. But this committee would like to see this handled. I don't think we should have to even vote on it, but if we do have to vote, is there still a moratorium?
It's,
There- There is still a moratorium on sale of properties.
right, so what it is,
One of the things that we could do is look at,
Plan.
and it's just an idea that is thought of, if there is still hesitancy on the part of commission to sell it, you could do a lease that would be workable. And
so
also,
what it is this, it's my building, it's the building, the driveway, and my parking lot. So right in between the parking lot and the building is the driveway that the city owns.
How could that be when those were all one place of business?
So it happened,
If y'all don't remember this, I hate to say it, but I'm getting ready to go.
That was a funeral home, that all
I
functions.
think we all need to get some rest tonight. But, Story did the same thing to my church when she made my parking
Oh,
lot,
okay, yeah.
separated my parking lot from my church, and it never been before in 100 years, but all of a sudden, soon as people decide to do certain things, there were certain things happened, that was separated, somebody said, well, that's the way the deed was. The deed never said that, it was always the same parking lot. So we ended up having to buy our own parking lot for the church, you couldn't even access the church
So,
about that parking lot, but nobody stood with that, but, it's just, games people play when they want to play it. I ain't saying this is that, but I'm saying that's what happened with us. And it was separated and segregated, and it's like somebody telling you that you can have your house, but you can't have your driveway.
Right, so it's my building,
But
which
that's,
is mine, the driveway, which is the city, the parking lot, which is mine. So right in between those two, yeah.
Would you consider maybe, as you thought about maybe trading for the
I know that's gonna
property?
purchase my driveway, because in your house, would you ask somebody, to do that to you, your house, your driveway, your lawn?
I just asked.
well, let's handle this a different way, and I just want to,
do we have all of the Mercy property, including the parking lot?
Yeah, because.
It used to
I'm
belong
the
to
chair,
the previous
that's-
owner that was holding the bag.
That kind of talk is like extortion, embezzlement, and racketeering and stuff like that, so we want to keep the terminology and the use of stuff very.
let's
positive.
let the attorney handle it. I think that it behooves us just to let this one. Well, no, we're not gonna debate this tonight.
But do we own that property up there? I just thought about that when he
We're not
mentioned
gonna debate it,
the Mercy property,
but we
parking
will.
lot.
The chief, Commissioner Henderson, Henry.
Well, I just want to say that some people, we have a moratorium for everyone, but then we have extended the rules to some of people. So, I don't know whose ring you have to kiss to get the work done, but, some people do have some privilege in Benton Harbor. And,
What a privilege.
they can buy property from the city. And we approved it.
If that happened, I wanna see it.
We just approved one with Dr. Butts. But there's a moratorium,
Oh,
so come on now.
yeah.
That wasn't the first one.
That one was done on the exact same basis that it had been
And
done
did we put a
previously.
reverting
I know,
in there?
Yeah.
I know.
Reverting back?
But-
Exactly.
But Dr. Times
True.
is having a problem, it sounds like a real
Clerk Moore,
unnecessary
thank you,
problem.
appreciate you.
Well, let's do this,
Thank you, Chair, for letting me
Let's-
say my
let's-
little soapbox.
we'll be there tomorrow. I'll come talk to you tomorrow. Let's see. This meeting's over. Thank you. We'll take care of it.
Right, Commissioner, so they've been